can we stretch a whole lot of time or into that those 6 days? So let's just look at one example. We could go on and on about this for a long time. So let's just look at one example and see how that just doesn't fit. So let's look at, when did God create plants? Well, if you go to Genesis and Genesis 1 and start at verse 11, where we're told, and God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, trees bearing fruit, which is in which is their seed rather, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And when did that happen? Well, it was on the third day, as it clearly says there. So now notice these are the first living things that are described in Genesis, in the series of creation. Now, here's an interesting question. Can plants live on their own? Because there aren't any other living things there. But if we look about the world these days, we see living things all working together. We don't see anything working in isolation. And that's an important principle to keep in mind. Nothing in the living world works in isolation. So let's just look at one example of that. Genesis described plants that have seeds with fruit. Now, most of the seed-bearing plants are flowering plants, and they need pollinators. Some of them can pollinate themselves, but most of them need other pollinators. Now, how long can we wait until you get their pollinators? How long can these plants wait? Well, in fact, it's less than one generation, because after that, they're going to die off. So when you look at these sorts of plants, these are just annual plants that grow out in the fields and in the gardens. One generation is not actually all that long. They are supposed to live and die and reproduce very quickly. So they can't last on their own for very long. Now, most of these are pollinated by insects, but what about other more long-lived plants like these? Now, people think we have very weird plants down in Australia. Well, we don't think they're weird. We live with them all the time. Here are some lovely grevilleas from Jurassic Ark, and they're pollinated by birds, and very pretty birds as well. So how long are they going to last? Well, again, less than one generation. And look how well they are designed to be pollinated by birds. These are kangaroo paws. We also have these at Jurassic Ark. They grow better over in Western Australia. But look how well the flower, and you can see that in the middle with those what looks like 4 prongs sticking out. That's actually the flower. And look at the bird's beak, how well designed they are to be pollinated by this little bird. And other plants are actually pollinated by little small mammals. This is a photo taken by one of our colleagues named John Bean, who is a really brilliant wildlife photographer, and he took this photo of these little possum. And some of those weird-looking flowers, which are rather large, they're pollinated by small mammals as well as by birds. So they're well designed for that. Now, what else do plants need? Well, John, when you take your dogs out for a walk through the bush and the open fields, do they often come back with seeds and things like that stuck to their fur?
They do, and then they expect me to pull them off.
Yes, that's right. Okay, because plants are well designed to do that. Plants need seed dispersers, and they're well designed for that. So as well as pollinators, once they have made some seeds after they've been pollinated, they need seed dispersers. And so animals are more important as seed dispersers than as pollinators, or more commonly as seed dispersers. Now, do you recognize these?
Well, those Scotch thistles certainly grow well in Australia.
Well, these aren't actually Scotch thistles. Sam, do you recognise these? These grow in England. You might recognize these.
They do look very familiar, but I don't know the name of them.
Yes, yeah, they're burdock. All right.
That's it,
And
burdock.
burdock, yes. And they have these little hooks on them, and they are well designed for hooking themselves to animal fur so that the animals can disperse them. So plants and animals always work in cooperation. But on the third day, we didn't have any animals. Now, how long were the plants going to wait until they got their seed dispersers? They couldn't wait for too long. Otherwise, the next generation is not going to grow. So you can't put in millions of years. You can't even put thousands of years or even tens of years. Right? Now, what else do plants need? Well, here is a photo of just inside the entrance to our Jurassic Ark site, our Fossil and Garden site. And look at that beautiful growth. Isn't that lovely? It really is beautiful, and the rest of the garden is beautiful as well. But it didn't always look like that. Here's part of one of our After Their Kind garden. That's another whole issue that's mentioned in Genesis 1. We won't go into that now, but one day we might do a program on it. And in the background there, you can see one of our dinosaurs, but also a lovely, lush growth with trees and shrubs and low-growing plants. Doesn't that look nice? Well, it wasn't always like that. In fact, when we first moved there, there was no soil at all, really. And so we had to bring in literally tons of this mulch, and you can see what looks like just acres and acres of mulch with a few plants struggling their way up through that. And that's that same site as that first photo I showed you of just inside the gate. A lot has happened in those years. Now, it did involve a lot of hard work from the people at Jurassic Ark, a lot of watering and lots of this mulch laid down, but we also needed these guys. And in fact, we had to import them, right, worms, and we really rejoiced when the worms started propagating and moving through all of that mulch, because plants need soil conditioners as well as all those other things. So in order for plants to grow, they need pollinators, they need seed dispersers, they need soil conditioners. They don't work on their own. And soil conditioners include all of these little creepy crawlies that you might have shuffling around in the leaf litter, as well as worms. So a lot of the invertebrates, all the things we think of as, oh, creepy crawlies, why would God make those? Really important things for keeping the living world working. Nothing in the living world works in isolation. So when God created the world, he made the plants on the third day. When did he make those other things? Well, the flying things like the birds were made on the fifth day. The animals, like the furry animals that pick up the seeds and carry them away, made on the sixth day. Now, if you make the world in 6 days, nothing in the living world works in isolation. Yes, you can wait a couple of days for your pollinators and seed dispersers and soil conditioners to come along, but you certainly cannot wait millions of years or even thousands of years. So what we see in the living world is evidence that there were rapid processes when things were first made, because everything had to work together right from the beginning. When God finished the world, it was a complete functioning ecosystem. So we can stand firm on this statement that Sam read out for us from Exodus. In 6 days, the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them.